Fox News Podcasts presents the Bret Baier Podcast, Common Ground.
There are a number of senators on the Republican side that continue to want to find common ground.
We emphasize the conflict and controversy sells, and I think that's a problem because most Americans look at Washington and see something that's broken.
Why don't we look for ways that we celebrate what this country is capable of doing?
It's amazing what you can do when you get off social media and you start talking and communicating with one another because there is common ground.
With Fox News chief political anchor Bret Baier.
I don't have the details on the timeline. I'm unable to answer details of exactly how the individual accessed the roof at this time.
I think today we came together unanimously in our disappointment for your lack of answers.
I will be joining the chairman in calling for the resignation of the director, just because I think that this relationship is irretrievable at this point.
It was quite a hearing, and now the Secret Service director has resigned. It's time for our Common Ground segment. Joining us tonight, the leaders of that committee, the ranking member and chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Maryland Democrat Jamie Raskin, and Kentucky Republican James Comer. Thank you both for being here. I understand this is the first time you've done a joint interview. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay.
He's too tall. He's like 6'5", I'm 6'2". So
Congressman
Raskin,
like let me start with you. This was quite a hearing to watch Republicans and Democrats come together with their joint concern about the answers or lack of answers from the Secret Service director.
Well, what took place on July 13th was a crisis, and we saw tremendous lapses in the security around former President Trump. And a firefighter was killed. Other people were seriously injured and wounded. And then the chairman called a hearing, and we made a joint statement denouncing political violence. But we wanted to get some answers to the questions that every American is asking, like, how do you leave open a rooftop on a building 150 yards away from the podium where a presidential candidate is speaking? And we simply got no answers to that or any of the other basic questions that everybody in the country is asking.
Mr. Chairman, there was a bipartisan congressional delegation that went out there to get firsthand look. Here's Congressman Crane and his video.
I could tell that if any of our counter sniper teams were up on that water tower, this individual wouldn't have made it 5 feet.
And they all kind of climbed up on that rooftop. There are so many things we don't know. With this resignation, do you think that we're still going to get those answers?
Well, I hope so. And the biggest disappointment for me in the hearing was that the Secret Service director didn't instill confidence in me or anyone on the committee, I don't believe, that this wouldn't repeat itself. What I felt like she should say was that, yes, we made a mistake. We did this wrong, and this wrong. And then we've corrected it. We'll never make that mistake again. We will make sure that we extend our perimeter. We will make sure that there are no open shots in a higher ground for any of the people we're protecting. But she refused to do that. Not only did she not answer our questions, she didn't give us any confidence that history wouldn't repeat itself. And I fear that could lead to a national security crisis, that could motivate future would-be assassins. And we don't need that. We need people to respect and fear the Secret Service. And I don't believe that she did that.
Mr. Chairman, you know the former president, and you know he likes these big rallies, tens of thousands of people. The Washington Post reporting in the aftermath of the shooting, agents from the Secret Service communicated their concerns about large outdoor rallies going forward to Trump campaign advisors. 3 people familiar with the matter said for upcoming events. Trump's team is scouting indoor venues such as basketball arenas and other large spaces. Do you think outdoor rallies are a thing of the past, Mr. Chairman?
Well, I don't think they should be. I think it would be a shame if they were. I think people enjoy going to them, and I think, you can get more people outdoor than indoor, and he attracts a big crowd, obviously. I think the president will do what the president wants to do, but at the end of the day, I would be concerned myself because, again, I didn't get any sense of confidence that the Secret Service could prevent this from happening in the future.
We'll hear more after this. Congressman Raskin, obviously this is a bipartisan issue. The Secret Service covers both Democrats and Republicans. What's the level of concern on your side of the aisle about what has transpired and where it goes from here?
Well, we're in the middle, obviously, of a very heavily contested presidential election where there is a new Democratic presumed nominee, a Republican candidate, and an independent candidate. And the Secret Service has the obligation to protect all of them. And you know, there are a lot of AR-15s out there. There are millions of AR-15s out there. And we thought that at least one group of Americans who could be protected would be presidential candidates. And so I have confidence that the Department of Homeland Security and the Secret Service will move very quickly to address the tremendous lapses that took place. But what was alarming was that the Secret Service director was telling us that there would be a report in 60 days. I think she said 60 days. I mean, that's a majority of the days left in the presidential campaign, which is just over 100 days now. So we need answers right away, and we need them to institute corrective measures immediately. And then, of course, we can go back to debating the larger problem of what's going to make the rest of us safe against assault weapon attacks, whether it's at a church or an elementary school or a supermarket.
Congressman Raskin, I think you're right. I hear that from viewers all the time. They just are frustrated that they don't get to the end of any of these investigations, especially something as big as this. You mentioned that the race is different. The Democrats, it looks like, are going to have Vice President Harris as the nominee. That is a breakneck speed to get behind a nominee like this. You know, it was last year, September, your party was considering, or at least talking about publicly, whether President Biden was going to replace Vice President Harris as vice president. You were asked about that on one show. Here's a soundbite.
You've said she's excellent. That's farther than Speaker Pelosi went. Do you think Kamala Harris is the best running mate for President Biden? Yes or no?
I mean, I don't know what else I can say other than she.
You can say yes.
I don't know whether President Biden has named his running mate. We're going to a convention next summer. It's a year away from now, and we're going to go through that process.
And so now she is likely the nominee in Chicago. Do you think this process is okay with most Democrats, that there hasn't been voting for Vice President Harris?
Well, of course it is, because 14 million people voted for Joe Biden and for Kamala Harris for president and vice president. And obviously we expressed our full confidence in her when we elected her, to be vice president originally. So we've been totally behind her, and our party is completely unified. The real question, of course, is over on the GOP side of the aisle, where the former vice president isn't even supporting Donald Trump anymore. Mike Pence said he's not supporting him. That was the breakneck speed, the speed with which Mike Pence got dropped. People were talking about hanging him, and then they stuck in J.D. Vance. Yeah. Instead, a guy who said that Donald Trump could be America's next Hitler said that's the breakneck speed. That's the amazing turnaround.
You could only do common ground so long. And then, Mr. Chairman, what about, can we call an end to the impeachment effort of President Biden? Has that come officially to an end?
Well, I think what the Oversight Committee did what we were supposed to do. We followed the money. We found tens of millions of dollars. We found lots of LLCs that we never could determine what the purpose of those LLCs were. We found where the money transferred from our adversaries around the world into different LLC bank accounts. We had the Bidens in for a deposition and a transcribed interview. They couldn't definitively say what they did for the money, and I think the American people have the truth now. We did what we were supposed to do. My job wasn't to impeach. My job was to investigate, and I investigated, and we've turned over our findings to Speaker Johnson's office. He can determine what to do with that, but I believe the American people know a lot more about what the Bidens have done because of our work.
I'll just say, well, I think Chairman Comer did a magnificent job exonerating Joe Biden of all the fraudulent charges that were raised against him in this Congress. And of course, there was no high crime, no misdemeanor. And Joe Biden is a passionate public servant filled with integrity and honesty.
Nobody's buying what he's selling on that.
America's buying it. The reservoir of love for Joe Biden is deep and really bottomless in America.
You do disagree on a lot of things, as we can point out.
I would like to commend the chairman also for a great hearing we did about pharmacy benefit managers who are ripping off the American people. And so we did more bipartisan work. And I hope we'll have an even bigger bipartisan surprise coming up. So there's something in the water and the air in Washington, D.C.
And Mr. Chairman, you agree that you do get stuff done, even though publicly sometimes you guys are very viscerally and vocal about disagreements.
Yeah, we have vastly different ideologies, but there are certain issues where I think Republicans and Democrats can come together, and certainly what we dealt with today, the high cost of prescription drugs. We believe that the pharmacy benefit managers were put into place to help negotiate lower drug prices, and they're not doing that. So hopefully we can come together and try to reform the pharmacy benefit managers.
Our ideologies do differ a little bit, but he's a good guy, and my ideology is democracy and freedom.
Okay. However, Republicans would point out that you didn't vote for your nominee, but that's, neither here nor there.
We all voted for our nominee, Biden-Harris, and she's going to be nominated at the convention. That's where we do it, just like the Republicans do.
Okay. Thank you both for coming on Common Ground. We really appreciate it. Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.